Welcome to Who You Got. I am your host with the most, Jacob Senstad. Tonight I'm joined by DITV Sports' Will Silverstein. Will, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jacob.
Oh, of course. So tonight we're going to be breaking down the final games of the NCAA March Madness tournament, and in a Who You Got First, we're breaking down a rule change in the NFL. So, starting off, Loyola Chicago will play the Michigan Wolverines at 5:09 Central Time. Loyola has quickly gained a place in everyone's heart as the Cinderella story this year, and everyone wants to cheer for him. Will, who you got?
I have Loyola Chicago in this game. I really like how they've been playing games, and I say that because they're not blowing teams out. They're playing these games really well. They play well down the stretch. They're able to manage their clock against teams that are ranked much higher than them and face competition much more difficult than Loyola Chicago on a normal basis. Teams like Tennessee from the SEC, and then also Kansas State from the Big 12. They made them look ridiculous. They won by 16 points. I think that sort of variety is something that no one's seen in the NCAA before, and because of that, I like the Ramblers.
Alrighty, well, they are the Cinderella story, but unfortunately the clock is about to strike midnight. Michigan's clearly the better team in this matchup, and I think they're just going to win the game. Their defense and offense are far superior to Loyola's, and in addition, Loyola easily could not be here right now, as we talked about. They won their first game by 2 points and their second game by 1, and that was the game against Tennessee, I believe. They did have a pretty good day against K-State, but, they've narrowly advanced through this tournament, and I just think their luck's got to run out eventually. And don't get me wrong, they're a fun team to root for. They've got a great coach that no one has heard of before this year. They've got the 90-something-year-old nun that travels with them and prays for them before the games. It's something new to see in the tournament, and it's a ton of fun. I just don't think they're going to end up winning this game.
It's a difficult matchup. Michigan's a tough team. Also another team from a big conference. I think the Big Ten has felt disrespected, only getting 4 teams in the tournament, and here's Michigan in the Final Four as a 3 seed.
Absolutely. I've got Michigan winning by 6. That's just me.
It's a good call.
So afterwards, Kansas plays Villanova, which I believe will be the best game in the whole tournament. 2 number 1 seeds. They're the best teams remaining and arguably the 2 best teams in the whole tournament. Virginia was number 1 overall, but they lost to UMBC in the first round, so they're yesterday's news. Will, who you got?
I like Villanova in this game. I think this is still a very experienced squad. It's a team that won 2 years ago, and it's a team that knows they can win. Kansas obviously always has a great team coming out of the Big 12, but the thing with them, they haven't won since Bill Self's team back in, I believe, 2008. So it's been a while. They haven't proven themselves. Jay Wright's hot coming off the win 2 years ago. He's been dominant in the Big East, and I think that sort of confidence is what will carry them over Kansas.
Alrighty, well, I also think Villanova is going to pull this one out as long as they play pretty much the way they have all season. They average more points, more rebounds, they have a higher field goal shooting percentage, and they have a higher free throw shooting percentage than Kansas. However, Kansas does have a 0.3% higher three-point shooting percentage than Villanova. But last I checked, Kansas doesn't have Steph Curry or Klay Thompson to shoot threes for them all game. So I just don't think they're going to be able to pull this one out. I've got Villanova winning by 5. And finally, the month is complete on April 2nd. That's where it ends. That's the end of all the madness.
Yep.
Everyone's bracket's been busted. We're all pretty happy to see it.
Mine was busted on March 2nd, so it's been a while.
Everyone's happy to see all of this coming to an end. I believe it's going to be Villanova versus Michigan. You think it's going to be Loyola versus Villanova. But who do you have winning between the 2 teams that you have going on?
Call me crazy, but I do have Loyola Chicago winning this whole thing. I think no one's seen anything like this. There's no reason why they can't win. I think that, this has been a year of breaking what we normally see, UMBC beating Virginia. I think it's destiny this year that Loyola Chicago can take this, beat Villanova, show them who's the best Catholic school in the country, and then move on, and hopefully next year maybe get an invitation to the Big East.
All right, well, for me, it's Michigan versus Villanova, and Villanova they just seem like the lock. They're the number 1 seed. They just won it all 2 years ago, and I think that's the slight edge that's going to help them beat Michigan. Michigan's a good team by all means, and they're going to put up quite a fight. But just with Villanova's squad, I think they're a little better all around. They've got the experience. They've been here before. I have them winning by 2 points. I mean, I think it's going to be a very close game to end it out.
Yeah, I agree on one thing, that it will be a close game. None of these teams seem to lose their focus, get blown out. They're always in the game, and I think their game management is what's taken these 2 teams to this level.
Absolutely. So last but not least, the NFL has passed a rule change about the catch, and more specifically, what is a catch? Now, they've defined a catch as 3 things. Number 1, you have to control the ball, which is it's common knowledge.
Right.
Number 2, you got to have 2 feet down or a body part in bounds. It can be a hip, a knee, a shoulder, as long as it is a body part of yours and it's in bounds. And then number 3 is performing a football move. And that's been the talk for the past couple years. What constitutes a football move? Now, a couple years ago, we saw it happen with Dez Bryant, where he caught the ball and then he dove forward and ground caused the fumble, and they ruled it incomplete. Yeah. So this year they've made it very clear. It's either a third step is a football move, a reach or an extension for the goal line is a football move, or something, or them being able to perform one of those. So if they turn, that's also a football move. There might be a little trouble in communicating if they were able to perform that activity, but what do you make of this rule change?
You know, I like it. It's something that's been a long time coming because they've tried to do it a million times before and it's never worked. I think now by defining football move, you get to a little bit of a better spot. But we've seen plays every week that are really tough to judge, that can go either way. I don't know how that exactly changes these plays. It maybe defines them a little bit better. Maybe we narrow them down. But I think you could still make the argument on the Jesse James play in that Steelers game that the ball moved. I think you can make the argument with the Dez Bryant play that, he took a couple steps, but if the ball's moving, what's the whole deal with that? I think that it's still a very tough thing to define, but I think it's a good step. I think it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully starts to clear up some of the difficulties with a rule that just never seemed to have been right. Absolutely.
And first off, I think everyone in Dallas is going to complain about this.
Oh, that's a given.
Because, under these rules, they said, straight from the NFL, it would have been a catch because he took a third step while he had the ball in his hands. Yeah. And basically it seems like if the ball gets jarred a little loose, it's still a catch. But if the ground causes an actual fumble, it's still an incompletion. So I think you're right in that it's a step in the right direction. It's not going to clear everything up. As long as we have different officiating squads that interpret the rules differently, there's always going to be a little give and take on what's going to be right and what's going to be wrong. But
yeah.
I
was going to say that's a great point because in the playoffs, the NFL squads, the officiating squads are made up of different teams. It's whoever performed the best to whatever the NFL standards were. So in plays like that Dez Bryant play in the playoffs, you might get a ref who calls it one way as opposed to someone else who calls it completely differently in a different game, in a different setting. And if it's not undisputable video evidence, your team's in some tough mud.
Absolutely, and that's where we get into the whole the backup referee thing that happened a couple years ago, the replacement referees, and then luckily they fixed that, and it looks like they're starting to fix the catch rule, which is great, just in time for my Vikings to make the Super Bowl run and finally win it, hopefully one of these years. So anyway, that's all we have for this week's show. Tune in to all of DITV's broadcasts, 8:30 sharp, weekday mornings. Thanks for tuning in. Have a blessed Easter.